Moore, Oklahoma, a path that was also traveled by a similar tornado about 13 years ago.
Yes.
But I didn't know what was going on. I'll be honest with you. I got home and turned on my TV, and I always go to Fox, and I thought this was from last night.
Yes.
You know, I thought it was Monday night stuff going on. That would have been Sunday night stuff.
No, it seemed like a replay, but only it was a worse replay.
Yeah, and I found out that it had just happened at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
And that afternoon, around a little after 4, I heard on the radio that Skiatook, Oklahoma, was having a tornado in the middle of it right then. And in fact, that's the suburb of Tulsa that my son-in-law's family lives in. And he's got a sister that's due any day now. She's about to go into labor. His parents live there, and then found out that his father was out in the yard doing some yard work, and he saw the tornado down, kind of coming his way. So, I mean, that is really Tornado Alley. And did I ever tell you my tornado story when I lived down there in West Texas?
No.
I took the girls, and we had a baby boy at that point, and it was in 85. We went out to a little town just outside Midland for a barbecue, and so just the two families were there, and things started looking kind of chancy, and so we went out and checked it, and anyway, my wife and the other lady and the kids all headed for they had a storm cellar. They had a kind of a canning cellar that they used only occasionally, but because that part of the country doesn't have basements. Typically you don't have basements in West Texas and Oklahoma, so there's no place to go like we have here.
Because the ground's so hard?
That's part of it. It's harder to get down into the ground, into the caliche.
Okay.
It's much more expensive, so it's a lot cheaper just to put a slab of concrete on the ground and go with that.
Okay.
So and there was a tornado come. We got in the pickup, drove over to the cellar, got in there, and the tornado came through, and it did a swath worth of damage, and it messed up the barn and the house and crossed the road into where the high school football field was. It took the metal bleachers and it twisted them like a pretzel and laid them out onto the field. So, and then I got out of the storm cellar, and I went into the pickup, which was maybe just 10 feet away. I turned on the radio to see what they were saying about it, and I didn't think about the aftermath. The aftermath sometimes on those tornadoes is horrendous hailstones, and these hailstones were bigger than the size of softballs, and they started in, and I was in that pickup, and I couldn't get out of the pickup, and it started cracking, and it started shattering the windshield, and it wasn't an extended cab. There was nowhere to go, and I was just sitting there praying that the things didn't come all the way through the windshield. And when we got out, I stepped out, and I sank down almost to my knee in mud. It rained so much in a short period of time. And then we just counted the damage. All the windows were blown out of the house. The roof was messed up. I had $4,000 plus of damage to a fairly new Honda Accord that my family was driving. And so that was my story. But it's one of those things that you see what's going on. And, I'm like probably you and everybody else. We kind of started saying our prayers last night for the surviving members of the families and those that might yet be alive and so forth.
Well, and they've actually, if I understand it right, last night they were at 51 dead and several hundred missing, but they've lowered the dead.
Oh, did they?
Because they found these kids alive in this school.
Oh, good.
They thought that third graders or sixth graders?
Yeah, I think there were third that were missing. Yeah, so they found a lot of those.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pulled them right out. Finally got to them, and they were all okay.
What is the current death count?
I don't know.
I think it's 24.
24.
Oh, that's much better than last night.
I heard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I just, KFOR television down there has a chopper, and, man, they were right on that. Interstate 35 backed up for miles and miles and miles. They shut it down because they needed to get the emergency crews in.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, we count our blessings. It wasn't too long ago that we had the same situation up here. What was the name of that town?
Parkersburg, that's right.
Almost.
And the attitude of the people down there, especially in the Bible Belt, is interview after interview where they were thanking God and they were praising God and they were saying their prayers. And I think the secular media is thrown off kilter. They expect for them to be cursing a nameless God and praising somebody like Obama that's going to send in the federal help. And instead, their attitude is much different in some of those parts of the country than especially the East Coast media is used to.
Yeah, now covering the story a little closer to home, and I think I have the latest. Authorities are asking for the public's help to find a girl abducted Monday in northern Iowa. Caitlin Shepard has been missing since 4 o'clock on Monday. Now, apparently, her and a friend were walking and said one of the girls, a 12-year-old, escaped and found help at a rural home. She was taken to Trinity Regional Hospital in Fort Dodge. So the girls were taken to a rural agricultural facility. What does that mean? Is that a farm?
I think that it's a hog confinement, from what I've read. No, seriously.
Okay.
I think that's where this guy who took him worked at.
Yeah,
he worked at the hog confinement.
Yeah,
took him from a bus stop. They found him dead. Michael J. Klunder, Klunder, found him dead. Don't know cause of death, and one girl is still missing.
And I'm told he hung himself.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah. And so the one girl got away, ran for help. The girl that's missing is the one that was still with him.
Okay.
So who knows
What he did with her.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
Oh boy.
a tragedy. And then on the heels of, the thing that happened up in the Cedar Falls area.
Yeah.
Almost a year ago.
The two cousins.
Yeah, the two cousins.
Yeah, that's bad. And then of course we had the revealing of the guy that had held those three
in Cleveland.
young women hostage for 10 years.
Yeah, how does that happen?
How does that happen? And he finally let them live up in the upper rooms. How did not a family member or a neighbor, somebody report something? And
but think of our society for a second, and think of how easy it is. We feel so connected online and Twitter and Facebook and all that. It's also easy to go off the grid, and families aren't what they used to be, or not what they're intended to be. At least no one's checking in, and I think that if in the right situations, you can just kind of melt away and go about your own business and be completely invisible.
Craig, that some of the neighbors at some point had called the police on some different occasions, and the police had, either minimally checked it or kind of ignored the calls, and that they were blaming the police for not being more thorough because if they had raised this alarm a couple of times. Had you heard that?
Right. No, I had heard that as well. And I think it's a fine line, though. I mean, if I call the cops on my neighbor and says he's suspicious, I mean, they kind of need something actionable to go in and search. There needs to be some sort of reason for
So they
this.
go and knock on the door and the guy doesn't answer his door and they go away.
Or they knock on the door and they talk to him and they're not, and some of these people are very, look, some of the greatest known thieves and murderers, they're very cunning individuals. And they're talented in a very bad way.
I was shocked that the two brothers were dismissed and charges were dropped within a day.
I was too.
I cannot believe that those two brothers never knew anything about what was going on in that house. Now, I did see an interview with them, and they would say that they would go in and play music and be on the main level, but they never went upstairs to the bedrooms. And one of the reporters said, why? And he looked at him and said, why would I go up to my brother's bedrooms? Why would I do that? But you'd think the girls would I don't know.
Well, you can almost sense when people are in a building. If you're in a house and you think you're alone, and all of a sudden it feels like you're not alone. I mean, you get a sense.
Wouldn't they have made a noise at some point to announce themselves? The one obviously had enough courage to make a run for it at one point.
Finally. Well, what's that syndrome called that when you are kidnapped and you kind of take on the sympathy for the kidnapper?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what that's called.
We had that with
Stockholm.
Yeah, do you remember the
Smart?
Well, before that,
Smart.
I'm thinking of the one that was part of the Symbionese liberation movement. She was an heiress, and she was kidnapped back when I was
Patty
Hearst.
Patty Hearst,
and she ended up, putting the beret on, and she was robbing a bank with them, and she'd been kidnapped and made to become part of the group.
Yep.
So I suppose that would be your more classic one right there.
Yeah. Well, and the one girl who got released into this. From this Cleveland story, she has refused to see her mother or her family, because she was told that her mother and family were dead. And so she says, they're dead to me. They've been dead 10 years. I don't want to.
Wow.
Which, I don't know, it just kind of.
It's weird.
But who knows? I don't know. I just think that's
how can
terrible.
they expect to have any degree of normalcy with 10 years of imprisonment and torture the way that they were? These girls got, when he raped them and they get pregnant, he would beat them till they, except for the one.
Right.
He would beat them till they miscarried the child.
Right.
And that's part of what they're getting him for now is that's premeditated murder, which comes right back around to what the issue of Craig's article we're going to talk about, the Gosnell, and when does life begin, the whole issue.
Right.
How can they in good conscience charge him with murder by beating the woman and creating a miscarriage, and yet they want to turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to late-term abortions?
Well, and we'll get there in the second segment.
I'm jumping ahead.
We'll get there in the second segment. The other, I guess it's not a big story here in town, but they've decided to rename Nolan Plaza for the Cowles family. Cowles family, of course, were one of the original of the Des Moines Register and Channel 8 and KRNT and what is now known as Star. So I haven't heard the whole thing of what they're going to call it, but it's going to be something with the Cowles family on it.
Yeah, Cowles Common.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Cowles Common?
Yep.
All right.
How much money was donated to get that done?
I don't know. It's an $11 million project.
I don't think the Cowles did it, though. Do you?
Well,
I heard that they're behind a significant portion of it.
Yeah, I mean, normally when you give a big chunk of money, you get something renamed for you.
And then the last piece that I think is interesting is a bank in Stuart, Iowa was held up. Did you hear about this?
No, I didn't.
And the girl was wearing a lime green prom dress, and she got away. They have her on camera. She walked into a bank in Stuart with a lime green prom dress, robbed the bank, and then left.
Look, if you're going to rob a bank in the state of Iowa, it's these little town ones that they go to. I grew up in eastern Iowa, and I don't even think it's a town. I think it's just a little intersection, and it's called Teeds Grove. That bank got knocked over like 15 times, and you're like, why? At one point, you're like, why is there a bank in Teeds Grove? There's no people there. But anyway, my childhood was always, bank robbery in Teeds Grove.
Not high security, I guess, huh?
No.
Well, my family owned a bank, and we'd read about bank robberies, and it was just, it would never happen.
Yeah.
Never happen. And then the year I went to college, we got robbed for the first time in 50-some years. All right, we're going to take our first break. Craig Robinson from the Iowa Republican is here, along with Tom Coates. Father Tattoo being specific, being real quiet today. And when we come back, we're going to start with Gosnell and what's going on with the abortion clinics, and then we're going to spend some time on these scandals and try to work them out. And we tried to have a nice conversation about it last week with Michael Libby, but he wanted to excuse the whole thing. It's coming up next live on KTIA.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I'm administrative manager
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
If we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
If you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
We've got questions. You've got the answer. Join the conversation. It's your voice we want to hear. So call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
All right, welcome back. 21 minutes after the hour on the 21st day of May in the Lord's year 2013. I'm J. Michael McCoy. Thanks for being with us today. Rake Plakas here tomorrow and Thursday, and then on Friday I'll be in, and let me see who my guest is on Friday. My guest on Friday is the incomparable Rob Jones. So we'll have Rob and we'll play Ask the Pastor on Friday, I believe. Bob Montserrat, the Cat in the Hat, who sits with us sometimes on some of the shows, he's been called down to Oklahoma on DMORT. He's on the National Mortuary Call Team, so he's heading down there. So Craig Robinson in the House from the Iowa Republican. And let's start. I loved your post of today where you said in the state of Iowa, McDonald's restaurants are required to be cleaner than an abortion clinic.
Yeah, sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
This all stems from the Gosnell case that got a lot of attention over the past month. And we started to think of, could this happen in Iowa? Could someone like this practice? And what we found out, absolutely. There's nothing that prevents those types of late-term abortions to occur in Iowa. And then we did a piece that featured that, look, there's a late-term abortionist that really does follow the same type of practices that is operating in the state. And then today we focused on, well, what kind of regulations are there for these clinics? And I think people would be shocked that if you went to a nail salon, a tanning salon, you got a tattoo, anything like that, that's regulated by the state of Iowa. A surgery center, an abortion clinic, those things, no, they're not regulated by the state of Iowa. And there is a push. The House passed a bill during this session that would have, it wasn't specifically about abortion clinics, but they would have fallen under that parameter. Passed the House, I think 94-10. Or not 94 to 10, but 90 to 10, and
a lot of Democrat votes there.
A lot of Democrat votes there, and so look, I think that a lot of people will argue and say, well, look, you're just trying to regulate abortion. No, I'm not. But you know what? We need to, if there is something that grotesque happening in this state, people should know about it. They should be educated about it. And if we can prevent it, you're darn right we should prevent it. And so that's kind of the basis of our three-story thing that we've done over the last 3 weeks.
I was surprised in the Gosnell case that it didn't get more media attention.
I was not surprised at that aspect, but I think what it did get was an opportunity for people like Craig and others that are willing to speak out and to try to make this an issue at this point. We've had public opinion moving our way for technological and the aspects that we've talked about on this show before. But I think when you get an item that is this gruesome, the media is as protective of Planned Parenthood and the abortion wing of their left party, of the Democrat Party, as they are of Obama. But there are some things that are cracks are starting to show up, and I think Gosnell is a crack that I think we need to exploit. If we don't do it now, we may not have a good opportunity like this anytime in the future. So I commend you, Craig, for striking while the iron's hot and doing what you can.
Well, and I'll tell you why that didn't get as much attention as I think it should have. It's because it makes the media uncomfortable. As we know, the media in this country is left of center. Mm-hmm. And so a story about an abortionist who will deliver a live baby and leave it in a toilet to die, or snip its, cut open at the back of its neck and snip. I mean, it's difficult for me to talk about this right now.
Yeah.
I don't know any human being who could do that. I mean, you look at it, there's all these pet lovers in this country, and they'll adopt a million cats and dogs, and yet there are babies being murdered in this country. And they say, well, these are unwanted pregnancies. No, they're not. There are thousands of people in this country who would love the opportunity to adopt those kids to raise those kids.
Let me share a story with you that somebody I really respect, and I'm not going to say his name because he's not a public figure, but he's a guy that goes to one of my men's groups, and his wife has known my daughter forever and ever. And this is a godly man. I mean, this is a man that when he comes to share something with me, I listen with a Holy Spirit kind of heart, because I just know that this guy's the real deal. I mean, he's just the real deal, just a regular guy, but I think he's got a relationship with God that just is second to none. He came and said to me, he said, now, before you get so high and mighty on your abortion issue, he said, remember, these children are unwanted. And what happens to unwanted children in this country? They end up putting on the rolls of the government. They very, very rarely grow up in a good household. They very rarely are not connected to some type of crime activity and usually end up in our prisons. So maybe God does not want these little babies to grow up to be these type of people, and so he takes them directly to heaven, so they never have to have an impact on this world, or the world have an impact on them.
Boy, I'll tell you this. Boy, that's a lot easier to swallow than a doctor in Des Moines twisting a baby's neck in the womb, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I respect this man. I mean, I'm sure he's got a good heart, but I'll tell you this, as someone who would like to start a family, that has struggled to start a family, and when you go down the roads and you do everything possible in your power to start that family and it doesn't work out, and then you go through and you start looking at what it takes to adopt a kid in this country, or from another country, the resources, the time, the effort, and there's no guarantees of it. And so I just flatly refuse the notion that these are unwanted kids. I'd take 3 of them today if I could get them.
I mean, with all due respect, I don't know this man or who you're talking about at all. I think that's a rationalization designed to make one feel better about a status quo that you can do little in regards to. I think that's the way I would try to look at it. If it confronted me and I could do nothing about it, then I would say this is God's will, and I would try to rationalize it. I cannot get my mind around that God wants these kind of atrocities, the Gosnells and the other abortionists, to go forward and to have murdered over 50 million unborn babies in this country since Roe v. Wade was put on the books.
I also think that's just a really dangerous mindset as someone who has studied history. So, you could apply the same thing to Nazi Germany. Maybe the lives that those people would have lived if they weren't, incinerated would have been far worse.
Yeah,
and he wanted to
genocide.
bring them to heaven. I don't believe that for a second.
Okay.
I just don't believe that.
Here's another thing, and I wish one of us in here was a lawyer, but you're going to have to be
I'm
the
married to
closest
one.
too. Okay, good.
That just means I'm wrong a lot.
You might have to call her and ask her. All right.
You and I have paid enough legal bills. We ought to be able
That's
to be
right.
qualified. I think.
We ought to get what do you get when you go to a graduation and they give you an honorary? We ought to have an honorary degree in law. All right, so this Castro, I think that's his name, in Cleveland, that kept these women in there.
Yeah.
All right. If they choose to try him for manslaughter for beating the woman's womb until the unborn child is killed, and then what's the term called? I'm sorry, aborted. All right,
Miscarried.
Miscarried. Thank you. Why can't if that goes through in a court of law? Why can't a lawyer use that as a case study and say, okay, we have someone here who is killing an unborn child and the mother didn't want it done? Why is that not manslaughter? Or if the mother wanted it done or not, why doesn't manslaughter apply on both hands? And they automatically can take an abortionist. They can walk into Planned Parenthood and lay down a summons, and they've got to come to court and answer those charges.
Yeah, I think it is manslaughter, especially in the case you just said. But I think the problem in America is that our Supreme Court back in the 70s does not realize or accept the fact that is two individuals. They think it is one, and so if the woman is fine with it,
Well, it goes back to
with an abortion, it's not murder.
Yeah,
and I disagree with that,
Yeah.
but that's what our court said.
But you're going to have to go back and redefine where life begins. I mean, it just sounds very simple, but it at that point, they did not have the technology back in 1973 to demonstrate like we can demonstrate today with all the sonograms and all the tests that
you don't even have to demonstrate it to me. Go talk to someone who was born premature. And so where's the sliding scale? I mean, you can have a late term abortion in Iowa, 29th week, 30th week?
And we all agree on here, but I'm just saying that in fairness, I don't think some of the people had as much knowledge and evidence in front of them back 40 years ago as we do today, that this is a life that we're talking about terminating.
And that is why I think even beyond technology, and I think beyond sonograms and the ability to see everything now that we can see and understand the things that we can now understand, I think that the reason the pro-life movement is winning the argument is because inherently we understand that life begins. We understand when we see a pregnant woman, walk down this concourse, that there is a life inside of her. I mean, I just think to not accept that is you're fooling yourself. You're pulling the wool over your eyes and ignoring what is 100% fact.
Well, and you said you studied American history. All right, I study the Bible and its history, and there has been a constant battle between the accuser and God throughout history.
Right. From
the first moment he walked up and said, Eve, God didn't really say that, did he? All the way to now. I think it's just example after example after example where the accuser comes in and fools someone's heart into believing that what God says isn't true.
Right.
And whatever it is that God says is true, that's what the accuser is going to attack.
Yep.
And we had divorce in the 50s and 60s. Oh, that's okay. And then Ronald Reagan, God bless him for everything he was, but he installed no-fault divorce, and all of a sudden now anybody could get divorced. It's just, I just don't know where it's going to end. I'm afraid the next step is that we're not going to be able to preach out of our own Bibles in our own churches because it'll be considered hate speech.
Yeah, it already is in Canada. I mean, and it has been that way in Canada for 10 years. And people, I think everything that I've seen this spring, especially in Iowa, with Board of Regents being voted down because of their religious views and all those things, I watch that stuff and I'm fearful for our state. I'm fearful for our country because I think we are drifting to where other places are, and that it's going to be illegal, basically, to preach the word of the Bible.
Real quick story, because we've only got about 45 seconds, and then we're going to take a break. Preacher saw this the other day. Room of 2,000 stands up and says, the year is 1900. I want one person over here to stand up. So one person out of this 2,000 stood up, and he said, that represents how many divorces in this country in 1900. Then he went over here and he said, okay, now you stand up over here. And we had two people standing. That's where we were in 1950. Then this whole section stood up, and that was 1970. And then if you've never been affected by divorce in any way, shape, or form, stand or stay seated. And so everybody in the room is now standing. 100 years later, everyone's been impacted by divorce. Mm-hmm. And I think, quite frankly, I think that's where the Christians should have stood up in the 50s and 60s and said, wait a minute, God hates divorce.
Right.
All right, when we come back, Craig's going to make sense of Benghazi. Finally, somebody.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
We're the ones in the pew, not pulpit. Come on now, let's reason together. The phone lines are open, so call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
338-22 before the top, Salem Radio Network News, and then Michael Mudloff with True Blue from Westkirk Presbyterian Church. Tom Coates in the house along with Craig Robinson from the Iowa Republican. Okay, I want you to look at me like I'm 6.
Okay.
Seriously. And I want you to explain to me like I'm a 6-year-old, maybe 8, what Benghazi is about.
Benghazi is all about competence in leadership at the presidential level. That We elect congressmen and senators and governors, and they all have their roles to play. But we elect one president of the United States, and their goal, but their mission is to protect America and Americans.
Okay.
And so when the phone call came that one of our embassies or consulates is under attack, we did nothing. And so,
what could we have done?
Well, we're the only superpower on the face of the earth. We have more technology in terms of drones.
Wow.
We have manned aircraft. We can go in and defend those people and get those out. I mean, we live in a country that when coal miners are stuck miles underneath the earth, that we will stop what we're doing to save their lives. And I don't understand how on earth an administration cannot do everything under its control to save the lives of an ambassador and high-level officials when they are under attack.
Okay, but Craig, even before that, they had reports that their terrorist activities, Libya was not a safe country, Benghazi was not a safe city. To have not taken proper security precautions to initially have protected those people was either gross incompetence or something even worse. And there was a base 90 minutes away from Benghazi.
Yeah.
That attack went on for hours. That former SEAL that went in to defend and try to save those people, it went on for hours. And there were people that were ready to move and to bring some relief in, and they were told to stand down.
Mm-hmm.
I think it goes beyond just incompetence. I think that there was intent. I don't know to what level of competent intent, but I do think politics played a part of it. I think Hillary Clinton played a part of it. I think Barack Obama knew more than he's saying. He went his priority was to go the very next morning early to Las Vegas for a fundraiser.
Right. Well, and mind you, this administration during a presidential election was conflict adverse. It didn't want anything to go wrong while the president was running for re-election. And so what's the worst thing that could have happened, in my opinion? What is the worst thing that could happen to a sitting president months before or weeks before?
Terrorist attack on American soil.
A terrorist attack. And so what did they do? They swept it under the rug, and the media went right with them. And only today, and only some of them are now talking about it. But remember, we had a presidential debate where Candy Crowley stopped Mitt Romney from bringing this up and covered for the president of the United States. Right. And the president of the United States sat there and smirked and smiled and got out of it. The whole thing was just to get through the next election. You want to know how the IRS scandal ties into this?
Well,
they swept that sucker under the rug too, so that it didn't come up. This was never going to come out before the presidential election. The most important thing to this administration was to get reelected, and that's it.
Okay, on the Benghazi thing, we'll get to the IRS.
I know.
thing.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. On the Benghazi thing, is there criminal?
Yes, there 4 Americans are dead, and I think that is criminal. And so, and the other thing that we have to remember, this is the highest ranking foreign policy and domestic people that we have, and if they can't shoot straight with the American people, I mean, that's a crime against this country.
Okay, now there's been another whistleblower come up here last night or today that said that he witnessed Obama telling the troops to stand down, and that's an order.
Wow.
Somebody within the White House or somehow was there, and he's now come out. Now, who knows? I read it on the internet, so... But you know the problem with that statement. Well, I read it on the internet. The problem is there's no real place we can go anymore to find the truth in news. And yes, all of us would say Fox is the closest thing, but closest isn't good enough.
But you have to have a filter. You have to read. I mean, I go to Fox News, and what I watch on Fox News or hear on the radio, you have to have a filter yourself. If you're an engaged citizen, to say what are the basic facts. And so, if you want to talk Benghazi, what are the basic facts? We were attacked. Okay, these people had requested help, like Tom said, for months. We were attacked. They did nothing. They did not. There was no effort to save them. These are facts. This isn't what the media is portraying out there. These are just the facts of the case.
Okay,
it is what it is.
So Barack Obama stands up and says, "Hey, my Secretary of State didn't do her job. I'm Commander in Chief. We all lose a couple people. I'm sorry."
Well, except for the fact that, I think Hillary Clinton is the one person that he couldn't do that to.
Okay.
And because of who she is and the help that again, Bill and Hillary Clinton, and especially Bill Clinton, helped him immensely in this reelection campaign. Yeah. So do you think he's going to call for her head, to call for her to resign because she's incompetent?
I'm not. I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure where Obama's soul lies. I haven't really found who he is. Who is he really?
No, he needs the press, and the press, many of them are more closely aligned with Hillary than they are with him even.
The answer to your question of where his soul lies where most liberal Democrats' soul lies, in government. And so when you think of that in an Obama sense, what does that mean? That means I just need to get reelected so I can continue to do what I'm doing, the social agenda in this country. Mm-hmm. That's what he's focused on. Mm-hmm. The stuff going on in the Middle East and the stuff going on over there, that's an inconvenience to them. Where they really want to hammer down is, things like Obamacare and all these other policies that, we're struggling with in our country.
Mm-hmm. Okay, explain the IRS thing to me.
Well, wow. Look, the IRS is the most intimidating government agency in this country. When they come knock on your door and ask you questions, you answer them. And the IRS, in this sense, targeted certain groups and individuals that had connections and asked them questions and denied their requests for tax-free status and asked, they asked an Iowa pro-life group, when you're outside of a Planned Parenthood, what are your prayers? What are your prayers? It's all politically motivated, and it all fits. And look, one of our U.S. Senate candidates, Matt Whitaker, who's going to be a U.S. Senate candidate, said that he and his law partner were audited. And they're the registered agent for things like the Des Moines Tea Party, the Iowa Firearms Coalition, and Iowans for Prosperity. And so I think that this is just the tip of the iceberg. I don't think this is hundreds of groups that were targeted by the IRS. I think this is thousands of groups that were targeted by the IRS. And anyone who says, well, this is just some rogue individual out there in a cubicle somewhere, doing something wrong, that's a line, and they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes.
There is if this is just low level, here's a remarkable coincidence. Back, according to the White House visitor logs, the president of the IRS Employees Union, a lady named Colleen Kelly, met with President Obama at 12:30 on March 31st, 2010. According to the Inspector General's report, the IRS campaign to harass and intimidate the Tea Party and other conservative groups was launched a day or two later on April 1st or 2nd. Now, the ABC, I just read this today, had gone to the IRS headquarters in Cincinnati, which is the office devoted to nonprofit entities. I well know that. But they couldn't get anybody to talk. The agents said that we have been told not to talk to you at threat of our own jobs. And when they did get into there, they were escorted around with an armed guard.
We're coming back. We'll wrap this up along with the AP scandal.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
We've got questions. You've got the answer. Join the conversation. It's your voice we want to hear. So call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
10 before the top, Salem Radio Network News, and then Michael Mudloff from Westkirk Presbyterian Church with True Blue. All right, Craig Robinson is my guest. Tom Coates in the house. Father Tattoo is producing. So let's segue this now. We've got about 8 minutes. So now you add the scandal in which we find reporters have had their emails and telephones hacked by the government. Okay. Somebody told me that this is a part of the Patriot Act.
I don't understand. I'm sure that maybe the justification for it could be construed and find its way through the Patriot Act. But I have a hard time. This is a journalist. This is the Associated Press.
Yeah.
This isn't, the Associated Press is not a liberal-leaning newspaper with an agenda.
Right.
Okay. These are people who are really do believe in providing just straight analysis and news, and to think that their emails are being gone through, their phones are being checked, who they're calling, what they're doing. I mean, I'm sorry, but how many times is this administration going to violate the First Amendment?
Well, Craig, why don't you explain to the audience what you believe was the motivation on the part of the White House to do this?
Well, I really don't know. I mean, to be honest with you, I think that, look, they're going to say that, there's sensitive information out there that they don't want, to get out. Bull. That happens all the time, and it happens to every administration.
Right.
Leaks happen. And so, if their idea to control leaks is to violate First Amendment, the Constitution, we don't live in a republic
All right.
anymore.
So, okay, then let me speculate on what their motivation is. Wouldn't have a chilling effect on anybody within any of the, we're talking about the IRS earlier, any of the government entities that want to be a whistleblower, to have gone quietly, covertly to a reporter or have the reporter go to them, wouldn't this have that chilling effect that would not encourage them to do that?
Oh, I agree. I think that definitely would be the result of it. Think twice before you let out our dirty little secrets. Absolutely. But again, this is dangerous ground. That the Justice Department feels compelled to track reporters. I mean, the AP has 20 different reporters that they were keeping tabs on. That's a huge number. I mean, because when you think about, we think, well, it's the AP and it's 20 reporters. There's not that many reporters in this country that cover politics. It's a very small group of individuals when you really understand how it works and all of that. And the AP is a big organization, but I'm guaranteeing you the 20 people that they were following are the 20 people who investigate government at the federal level. They're the 20 people who actually have a lot of credibility,
Craig,
and they're going after it.
Couldn't this make it game on, though, by the time that finally the media is woke up? Isn't this game on perhaps like it was under the Nixon administration? Now you are trying to find the next scandal or more information, and isn't there a competition now to be the one to release the newest scandal. I mean, we've got 3 of them out there. Isn't this now finally the time the media wakes up and maybe does its job?
I think it's open season on the Obama administration, that all the things that they might have been, we'll look aside, it ain't that big a deal. Oh, this IRS thing and these Tea Party groups, oh, maybe there are some that need to be checked out. Well, now I think that those things that they're made aware of rise to a new level and say, look, this administration is doing an awful lot of stuff. And by the way, for all the faults of the Bush administration that preceded Obama, we didn't have anything like these 3 scandals we just talked about. Nothing.
Well, and the reason these are so big is because they hit at the core of our freedoms.
Right.
Every single one of them. Right. You know, Benghazi we have the freedom to be protected, that our service men and women, also the officials and like the ambassador, have the right to be treated and taken care of. Your personal information has nothing to do with whether you should get a 501c or 503c. Yeah,
501c3. But the liberal goo-goos with Bush in all respects said weapons of mass destruction is their first mantra. And yet when you go around the world and you looked at all the intelligence that Israel, Europe, everybody had, that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. He was building them. He was going to use them. He'd used them in the past.
He said it himself.
And yet this was the kind of scandal that they were digging at for Bush.
Yeah.
There really wasn't much there. There's an awful lot here. And I suspect, Craig, you're right. We probably just scratched the surface, not of just these 3, but some more that were yet to come.
Mm-hmm.
Can Benghazi hurt Hillary in 2016?
I feel like I'm the lone wolf out there in the media. I don't think she can run for president.
Okay. All right.
I think she's done.
Well, I think it may have an impact here. I was saying earlier that I think Tom Vilsack maybe gets in to run against Branstad, but not if he becomes out a scandal-ridden.
Look, I'll tell you this right now. I feel that 2014 is going to look an awful lot like 2010 did. Mm-hmm. You have now reinvigorated the Tea Party movement. People are frustrated with their government. They're downright scared of their government, and they're going to take to the streets, and they're taking to the streets. And so this is the worst case scenario for the Obama administration and Democrats. Mm-hmm. And so I think that if there's one thing that will unite Republicans or the opposition to the current administration, it's these type of scandals.
And this atmosphere, I mean, I think it probably guarantees, if this continues to go like it is, that Vilsack won't want to go in against Terry Branstad and put himself up on the rocks. It might also give us an opportunity, even with a second-tier candidate in the U.S. Senate, to beat a Bruce Braley if he's coming out of what appears to be a scandal-ridden Democrat Party.
And let's not forget, Bruce Braley is a second-tier candidate. He was not the Democrats' first choice.
Who was?
Tom Vilsack was.
But he didn't want it.
All right, but we have. I mean, look, I'm not gonna.
Tom Latham didn't want it.
Right, but Bruce Braley is not the cat's meow of U.S. Senate candidates. This guy is far too liberal. I've been watching him closely. He doesn't really know how to campaign yet. Maybe he's just trying to rope and dope me a little bit. But
so
this guy seems clueless.
Who do you predict gets in and takes him on?
I'll answer it this way. I'll put my money on the last guy in.
Might be Steve Dace. That might be your chance.
Yes. You keep throwing him out there, Mac.
Tom has been working with a lot of people and building relationships. Tom might help that campaign.
Tom's got a big sign in his front yard. Dace for Senate. I got to tell you something funny.
Put the casino no sign and get the Dace sign up there. That's right.
A very, very good friend of mine who I love dearly, who listens to this show, came up to me the other day at church and says, "Is Tom Coates really for Steve Dace?" I said, "No, I'm just joking." Okay. All right, Craig, thank you very much for being here. Tom, thanks for being here. Father Tattoo, thanks for producing. I will see you on Friday, and then Sunday, of course, RestoringHopeLive.com, the national show. Until then, do me a favor. Tonight, after you shut off the TV from watching all the news from Oklahoma and some of the great stories about the lady who found her dog and the little boy who came out of the rubble, and you say your own prayers for your own family, say a prayer for yourself, for the faith that you have in Him, and how very pleased you are and honored that He has put His grace on you in your life.